All right, my people. Time for another Just Reason. A few things that my man want to talk about. Um, I'll first start by offering my condolences to the family of, I believe the man's name is Robert Godwin in Cleveland, Ohio. That crazy situation with that guy who was going around and saying he's killing a bunch of people. So far, they've only found one person, but it's just a real tragedy. Just such a heinous crime. I just see somebody I didn't watch the video, but I've heard about it. Record himself walking up to go and kill this innocent old man, 78-year-old man. Think about what a black man in America has gone through at 78 years old, the time that he has lived through, and to be set upon by a coward, just up and just kill this man because of problems in his own life. It's madness. That situation is extremely sad. There's really not a whole lot to say about it, other than just sincere condolences and to his family and everybody involved. What I want to talk about though is just some comments that I've seen regarding this, and it's kind of a regular thing where when something happens um, within the black community, then you will have people say, it's a tragedy at, where's Black Lives Matter? Where's Black Lives Matter? Why aren't they doing anything about this? Why aren't they saying anything about this? Um, it's, it's, I take it as they're doing it to discredit the very legitimate issues that Black Lives Matter started, to combat, which is basically um, abuse of citizens by the police. Whether black police, white police, just abuse of power by police of black people. That is a very legitimate issue. I mean, you can look at statistics all across the board, and it will point to that being a very legitimate issue. It's like people get caught up in the phrase Black Lives Matter. That phrase has really offend some people for some reason. I've said this time and time and again. The phrase Black Lives Matter does not mean only Black Lives Matter. It means Black Lives Matter also. The fact that they even had to come up with such a slogan obviously goes to show that to many in control, um, it seemed as if Black lives did not matter. Right? So we're saying, hey, look here, our lives actually do matter. Right? So that's what the phrase means. So, I mean, in the aftermath of this tragedy there in Cleveland, I just hear a lot of people saying, "Where's Black Lives Matter?" And and this is a common thing. When you see any shootings and in poor communities or what have you, it's always where's Black Lives Matter? Where's Black Lives Matter? Look, there are dozens of organizations across the country meant to combat different issues. Black Lives Matter has taken on this particular issue. It doesn't mean that they do not care about street crime and gang violence and what have you. It's just, I mean, that's not what their primary target is. We have all kinds of organizations that are dealing with those issues. And another thing I'll point out, just because you do not see something on CNN doesn't mean it's not happening. It's really not hard. It's like, how the common refrain. What about Chicago? What about Chicago? Why don't they do anything when this violence happens in Chicago? It's really not hard. We have, computers at their fingertips all day long. You can find dozens of marches and initiatives and projects of people within these communities trying to combat these issues, right? So the fact that crime and violence still exists within these communities, within our communities, does not mean that people aren't addressing it. And it doesn't mean that we only care if a cop or a white cop kills a black kid. No, people care about all sorts of violence, right? Media tends to focus on certain stories more than others because they're more attractive to sell media. but it doesn't mean that people aren't fighting these issues. Look, the issues of crime and violence in our communities are extremely complex, right? Um, it has to do with poor education, has to do with unemployment, it has to do with hopelessness. It happened, had a lot to do with, absent fathers, worthless mothers, and just people not handling their business. A failure of business, social, community, religious institutions, just, forgotten about communities. And when there's that void, nonsense, grows from that, right? So if we talk about solutions, these aren't easy solutions, right? I mean, the violence that we see are symptoms of social decay in many different ways. These aren't things that are going to be fixed overnight. These are things that it's going to take, say each one teach one, each one help one. It's going to take people with unique expertise in certain fields, and beyond expertise, just an interest and a passion in something. Whether you're good at math and you want to volunteer your time to tutor, some kids. Whether you're into sports, a former athlete or what have you, or you're just good with kids and you want to volunteer at a boys and girls after school program or something. These issues are complex. It takes investment from political organizations, business organizations, just people, right? So, I mean, that is a whole long discussion that I could really spend a lot of time on. But, I think the phrase Black Lives Matter, which was really the purpose of this whole video, just bothers some people, right? Again, if our lives really mattered to some, then we wouldn't have to ever say that phrase. But there are countless instances. I don't have to name all of them. From Trayvon Martin, from Mike Brown, through all too many names to mention, where it seemed that our lives were just disposable, right? Easily disposed and easily replaced. And so that movement was started to address the fact that when you see a black person being killed in many instances by authorities, that specific, because if for this regular street crime, they're in that 99 out of 100 times they're going to find that person. This guy in Cleveland will be found eventually. They're going to find that person, and he is going to place hit with the fullest extent of the law, right? But in other cases, that doesn't happen. George Zimmerman, Darren Wilson, they just gotta, you know, murder and went on with their life. All right. So, so it's just to say that our lives do matter also. So, that's kind of what's on my mind. It really annoys me when these things happen and people's refrain is, why isn't Black Lives Matter caring about this? Well, you see, I mean, as if to just delegitimize their very legitimate issues. Because they don't address every single issue in our community, then they must not care about anybody in our community, which is nonsense. And just think about that. Think about that whenever you run to this refrain. I see it's not just white people who do this. Matter of fact, I've seen more black people do this than anybody. Maybe that's just who I hear talking the most. But it's always, where's Black Lives Matter? Anyway, it's vibe on that. Those are my thoughts here in the early morning. Again, prayers go out to the victim. I hope I got his name right. I don't have it in front of me. I think it's Robert Godwin or something similar. Prayers to his families, and bless up my people. Good night. God bless.